Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're doing our podcast thing that we do with Sean and Stephanie. Today, we are talking about alternative therapeutic approaches because a couple episodes ago, we talked about why therapy might be wrong for you and some of the sort of shortcomings that come up in therapy. And so today, we thought we would talk a little bit about what some alternatives might look like so that if the last episode left you feeling hopeless and like, well, what the heck do I do? Maybe there are some cool alternatives. And I thought that we could start with just talking a little bit about what Stephanie provides, because Stephanie provides some really cool stuff. And so, and I know that just in talking to Stephanie, off of recording, I've learned a whole lot about alternative approaches to this kind of work. So I thought it'd be cool to find out. So, Stephanie, can you tell us, a little bit about what the heck you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for that intro. The main thing that I really love about the practices that I was introduced to are that they are primarily nonverbal. Now, I'll explain a little bit about what that means and how that registers in your nervous system. So, the practice that I'm certified in is called TRE, which stands for Tension and Trauma Release Exercises. And they were developed by Dr. David Berceli, who was already an energy healer and a massage therapist, and noticed when he was in these very high conflict situations. He was in Somalia and a couple of other nations when they were in like active combat conflict situations, bombs being dropped, lots of chaos and disruption to daily life. And he noticed that the children and animals would shake. They would, like vibrate after a particularly intense period of chaos, but the adults didn't. And that kind of made him go, I wonder where that mechanism gets shut off. And so he developed a protocol to elicit that tremor response, which is innate. We just get socialized out of it. So instead of doing something and learning something that you have to put on or expect of your body and teach it, you're actually just asking it to do what it's built to do and allowing it to do so.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I have lots of questions, but there are two that immediately come up. One is you mentioned that one of the things that you really like about it is that it is nonverbal. What is it that you like about that?
Well, as you know about me, I don't know if our audience necessarily knows, but as you certainly know, I tend to be a bit of an overthinker, and I live a lot kind of neck up. I've traded on my intellectuality and just been very praised for being an exceptional student and a problem solver, and a lot of my value and worth was tied up in this identity of someone who is a good thinker and a solid problem solver. So when it came to things like fatigue and overwhelm and nervous system kind of dysregulation, it was something I couldn't think my way out of. And I felt really, really hopeless and alone. And worse, I felt shame on top of that because I'm so smart and I should be able to figure it out. So, what I love about TRE and the fact that it is mostly nonverbal, and when I say mostly nonverbal, I walk you through the steps and the exercises verbally. And then once you are in the receptive state to allow the tremors to happen, if you would like to talk to me about what's happening and what's coming up for you, you can. And I will check in verbally to make sure that you're okay, but you don't have to respond. You don't have to analyze it. In fact, I invite you to kind of try to turn that part of your brain off and just let your body do what it needs to do to kind of soften and release areas of tension that have formed or tried to protect you the best they could in a moment of chaos and maybe didn't get effectively released. So, for example, if you get a really anxious, anxiety producing phone call or text message, your body will brace for it And even though maybe the situation resolved, if you didn't have the opportunity to let your body kind of wiggle its way around and release it, it might still be stuck in a pattern of holding, and you might not even be aware of it. But
Yeah.
you'll be aware of the discomfort and kind of how it shows up in other situations.
Yeah. The idea of, because I definitely work with a lot of people that, well, and I am also one of these people that have a tendency to hyper intellectualize and use that as a defense mechanism that becomes maladaptive and gets in the way of them actually feeling their emotions, or us actually feeling our emotions.
Yeah.
And so to have something that is able to sort of circumvent or just shortcut right around that and just get right to, oh, cool, I'm back in my body where all of this stuff is happening, seems awesome for people that know that they are really smart but just can't solve, it's not a problem that their head can solve. And then the other part that I was curious about is, when you talk about the tremoring, what is it? So I totally got that, you know, it seems like an innate thing that animals, children do, and we get conditioned out of it.
Absolutely.
What is it that tremoring does? How does that help? You know, if I, whatever, get a mean text from my boss that tells me some bad news about my job, what is it that tremoring does to help with that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, like, if you've ever watched National Geographic big cat chase, right? The cat will chase usually an antelope or a gazelle of some kind. And then if the antelope or gazelle doesn't get gotten, if it doesn't get caught, it will like have a full body tremor, and then it'll just go back to like lazily eating grass. So that whole mechanism is basically your nervous system operates on three different levels. There's a dorsal, which is a very sleepy, calm. It's your rest and digest. It's where you go when you're safe and or threatened, but you don't need your body and your nervous system has decided that the least amount of response is what's going to keep you the most safe. Then you have kind of active, social, engaged. That can only happen under safety. That cannot happen if you are aware and vigilant and like trying to protect yourself. And then there's that hyper vigilant, super aware, activated state. So what happens is you start, theoretically, you would start in this safe middle ground where you're aware of what's happening around you, but you're not overly concerned. And then a threat happens and you get spiked up to that hyper aware state. Normally, the tremor mechanism, what it'll do is it'll drop you back down and you'll kind of level out somewhere between the dorsal response, the like shutdown, but healthy shutdown response, and the kind of social, happy, safe response.
Yeah, that's,
The reason,
go ahead, go ahead.
go ahead. The reason the tremoring it like facilitates that, or that's the mechanism by which it works, is you have fascia that surround all of your muscles and internal organs, and basically it works like, have you ever seen those bags around citrus at the grocery store that kind of flex with the weight? So that's kind of how your fascia is structured and it operates. So imagine if something got stuck in that mesh, it just wouldn't have the same level of mobility and ease. And so what the tremoring does is it literally shakes and moves and loosens that fascia so that it can have full range again. And you can go from activated to deactivated to safe and healthy without there being kind of like, I like to call it, without having a hitch in your giddy up. Like it loosens anything that can be gripping or tight or stuck.
I didn't know that I needed to see Stephanie as a Southern girl until just now. but that was awesome. The so much of what you're talking about, it's so interesting the way that it maps on to a lot of the stuff that I understand, just in a different approach, like a different methodology to achieve the same thing, where there's a few different parts of it. So first of all, a lot of what you were talking about in terms of the different states map on to what I understand about the nervous system, that there's the sympathetic and parasympathetic, there's fight or flight, rest and digest. And then
And I would add there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
right.
So there are definitely multiple ways in which we kind of get stuck in activated responses. And when I was talking about being socialized into kind of being okay with those maladaptive responses, especially as women, I think more so than men, the fawn response, tend and befriend as a way of protecting yourself, is highly praised and valued in our society, but it's not ultimately the most healthy state
Right.
to exist in, especially long term.
Because your nervous system is just constantly activated. You're like
Constantly on alert.
Right.
Which we're supposed to spark into that alert for a short sprint.
Right.
To get away from a pet predator, to hide, and then come back. Yeah. And it's the not coming back that creates all of this kind of chronic pain and that undiagnosable diseases that you go to the doctor and get your blood tests and do all of the things and they say, no, you're fine.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And so having that sort of map on, and what you were talking about in terms of the tremors helping to sort of rebalance, my translation is like rebalance your nervous system. I think the one sort of analogous that I have in the practice that I do is something called alternate nostril breathing, which does the same kind of thing. It's really cool to see just different methodologies that help to regulate the nervous system. The other thing that I really liked about what you talked about is that I read something recently that was talking about, it's great that we're becoming more aware of our nervous systems, because it shows sort of a general trend toward, healing and awareness and all that good stuff. But what drove this particular author crazy is that people talked about the nervous system in a vacuum. They talked about just regulating the nervous system, and the nervous system doesn't act independently. It is something that functions with all of the other parts of the body. And so it's still this sort of specialized, unholistic approach. And so the fact that it involves all of these other parts of your body that then help to regulate your nervous system, I think makes a whole lot of sense, and seems really helpful. And the last thing is that when you were talking about fascia, that's why I love yoga so much, especially not flow yoga, especially yoga where it's just like long holds and you just feel all of that release. I've talked before about how it was really funny. I posted a short where I talked about how I've seen people just like break down crying from holding poses in yoga because they are releasing some of the emotions that were stored in that fascia. And somebody commented and they were like, no, you haven't. And I was like, okay, I mean, you can believe whatever you want, but so yeah, I mean, it sounds awesome. It sounds amazing. Sounds like an amazing practice.
And we talked a little bit, we touched on surrender in one of our last podcasts. This is basically TRE, and the protocol of doing the exercises to fatigue and stretch the muscles before you go into this is exactly to prevent kind of, going into a yoga class, overexerting yourself, having this huge emotional response, and then going, whoa, what the heck happened? I just went into an exercise class. And then feeling like there's something wrong with you. So yoga is an amazing and exceptional way of getting those same benefits if you're aware that that's what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, because so much of yoga now has been co-opted as exercise classes.
Correct. I once went to a yoga class where I was getting barked at like I was in boot camp. And I immediately walked out and said, this is not why I came here.
This is
This is
not,
activating my nervous system. This is making me more stressed.
it's not even yoga at that point.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And we could do a whole podcast about that, because the way that yoga has been colonized, it just aggravates me beyond all reason.
100%.
And you mentioned alternate nostril breathing. Nadi Shodhana is the kind of one of the tantric names and ways of referring to that. And it's very much about stopping and noticing what is the direction of flow that's present without me trying, which takes, a little bit of effort to be able to surrender and just notice what is without trying to change it or make it look nice. And then actively changing the direction or changing the duration to produce a desired result.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder, are there things, do the exercises within TRE, do they always need guidance, or are there exercises that people can do on their own? Sort of like, if we were to teach like alternate nostril breathing, are there exercises that people can do on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love about it. So, one of the things that we talked about therapy is sometimes it creates a dependency. What I love about TRE is that idea of taking ownership of your own process and learning TRE as a tool that you can then implement on your own, without any kind of external guidance or supervision, unless you want an additional layer of support, is one of the reasons that I love it so much. So most of my clients that I work with, I kind of start them on a 3-session package. We do the same exact version of the exercises 3 times in a row. So the repetition gets them really comfortable with it. It is now a tool that they can use. And then I give them advice for how to modify it. You don't have to do every single exercise every time. Once you get used to it and it feels native, it feels normal again, to let yourself experience that level of surrender, you can go in to the tremoring without necessarily even doing any of the exercises at all.
Cool. Yeah. So
it's just a pathway. It's just a tool.
Yeah, totally. So we'll leave a link in the description to it. If you wanted to sign up for a 3-second session package with Stephanie, you can absolutely do that. And are there any exercises that we could like give at the end of this that's just like as an example of, hey, if you wanted to try this out, like, can I stand on my, I have no idea what an exercise would be. Could I like stand on my tippy toes and make
I mean, the tippy toes is definitely part of it, because you are fatiguing your calf muscles.
Yeah.
So calf raises are one of the exercises in the sequence. And there's a ton of information. Dr. David Berceli is such a gift. If you just YouTube TRE there and just make sure that it is a David Berceli, it's either on the official TRE Global channel or someone who interviewed him and had him on their podcast, because there's a lot of misinformation as well. So I just want to direct people to the source.
Totally.
The exercises are available online, and it's something that people can engage with on their own.
Cool.
I just think having someone to guide you through it initially, when it's something that's been so counter advised and we've been socialized out of, can be really helpful. It can just smooth the transition. Think about how many times maybe as a kid you were told off for shaking your foot or clicking a pen or stimming in ways that might be annoying to other people. That was basically just your nervous system saying, hey, I could really use a little bit more intentional space and support to process what I'm trying to process.
Totally. And I remember another example that you used when we were talking offline at one point is you said, think about, when people work out and they shake, that's a sign of weakness. And it's actually just your body, working through that fascia.
Absolutely. Responding exactly in the way it was designed to.
Right.
That we have now put a label on as that's weak, that's bad. We need to push through that. No pain, no gain. And there are definite benefits to discipline and structure and really pushing yourself to excel. And there also needs to be a balance of being able to come down and repair and relax and nourish.
Totally. Yeah. So Stephanie, thank you so much. I'm excited. I think that the reason that coaching in general is emerging as a field is because of that gap that we were talking about in the other episode, where there are a whole bunch of functional but miserable people that just sort of get
Absolutely.
abandoned by the system as it is. And so it's really cool to hear about one particular methodology that is an alternative that is really perfect for people that overthink and, you know, are super in their head and have trouble connecting to their bodies, their emotions, etc. And is a really sort of, it's a quick, accessible way to access that stuff. So thank you for chatting.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I would love to caution people against biohacking your nervous system or doing anything to, while TRE is a very quick, efficient, and accessible way to tap into your nervous system, the actual process is more of a conversation. And so I kind of I kind of get a little bristly when I see all, a 5-minute vagus nerve reset and all of these silver bullet nervous system hacks.
Totally.
Because that's not the way our nervous system works. Our body is actually a lot slower than our mind. And I would say a huge part of having a coach and having someone support you in this work is the permission and the reminder that it's okay that you're trying to think about it. It's okay that you're impatient. It's okay that it's frustrating, but keep bringing it back to the body and let the body have the time and space that it needs to do its process.
Yeah.
Because all it wants is to protect you.
Yeah. The validation of all of the conditioning that we've had. And then it's really a lot like meditation. It's like your mind wanders, has all sorts of thoughts, and then you call back to your breath or whatever it is that you're focusing on.
Absolutely. Yeah. My best clients and my favorite clients are, athletes and high achievers and people that are really socialized to push themselves because they need the most support.
Totally.
In saying it's okay to not know what's happening. It's okay to surrender into this and trust that your body has its own internal wisdom, that you've been taught that that's something to override and medicate, and to be able to actually have a conversation with your nervous system where you're not just reacting to stimulus, but you're actually like in cahoots with the part of you that innately knows what you need to be your best and healthiest self.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.